Okay, I will go ahead and we'll speak about Georgia. You know, it's a very strong title, Landscapes, Objects, Communities. I will focus maybe in the one part, which is our institution, which is largest cultural heritage institution, not just in Georgia, I think in whole region, which is really on the nexus of the culture, science, and exploration. So this is our ambitious to create this kind of synergy. The history starts from mid-90s, 19 century, when the Russian Empire created in Tbilisi the Museum of the Caucasus. And I think this make us quite unique by the collections, because we have now encyclopedic collections from the whole Caucasus and adjacent areas. It's not just Georgia. So physically, we are in the center of city, and we want to be like, was ambitious to be Acropolis of Georgian culture. But simultaneously, we are working in regions. And the idea of National Museum is that it's not just museum, it's a network where is the combination of the classical museums and research centers and building new ones. And we build it since we're having this new system of National Museum in regions, already 5 new museums. And we try, this is a maybe very classical approach today, really to combine research, preservation, high-level presentation, public and professional education, though of course entertainment. But what we try to do is to build it around own narrative. And this is a story of our country. May I say this is biocultural history, starting from nature, going to the historical processes. And if you will look on the map, you see that we are between these two water systems, and it gives you very special biodiversity. And biodiversity hotspots in the world are around 35. And one of them is Caucasus, but advantage of Caucasus and different from others is here you can study evolution. You can study in hotspot whole history of nature from very early periods going to the modern time, and identify also refugees. So it's what we try, which is from other hand was factor why we have so many archaeological sites in a small territory. It's a just map of prehistoric up to the from early Paleolithic to Neolithic. So in 2 words, you have big biodiversity and uninterrupted culture. So the narrative we try to present is through this, how you can identify in Georgia big stages of humankind and correlate with global changes, but in both directions. It's a cultural transformation, but of course, natural sciences, paleoecology, paleoenvironment, climatic changes, etc. So that's why you need always identify big issues in science, and I will use several ones and how around these big stories we're trying to develop 2 directions. One from Tbilisi, where you have central part, but most important on the place actually where you have these important finds. Like first humans out of Africa, it's a big scientific question since a long time. We knew that first humans appeared in Africa, but when they left Africa and spread out of it, it was question mark. And we have now this luck that in Georgia, and you can see on the geographic map where we are, we have these fantastic finds, which is on the site of Tbilisi. And also it's beside of big scientific importance, it's a very photogenic and very special. Maybe it's a rare place in the world where you can see history. You see the medieval history, church, medieval church, and below it you have very early prehistory, and which has a big scientific importance, like the scientific community in the world identifies this place and they agree with our work that it's a first oldest spread of genus Homo in Eurasia. So this is a very hot question. And you have stages. One stage was to show how old is it. Then you are describing different elements like how these first fossils were looking and how important they are for scientific scale. I mean, how was the brain capacity, how was the morphology, what kind of stone tools they were producing as well. So this is a, let's say, scientific value of it. Plus its scientific value, like some discoveries, is not stopped. It's an ongoing process. So if first stages where you are saying this is very old and important, then you can speak about characteristics, these early humans, which dates back 1.8 million. Then you can use, we have these 5 skulls, and it gives you opportunity to study population biology. From other hand, this is very good marketing history, cradle of West European, and all it came through different popular media, but based on high level of science, like Science magazine. One of even the last discovery in 2013 was cover story both in Science Art magazine and New York Times. So this means that it has important scientific, but it's ongoing. It's not, and for example, recently we had, for example, new papers where we identify earliest proteins. So it means you are getting molecular biological information from the bones. In fact, with my Danish and Italian colleagues, we were working on it, on phylogeny, let's say history of one group of rhinos. So one hand, what I wanted to say, you have this scientific discovery which put you on the map, but your ongoing story in both directions. Research on the local excavations, but high level of technology. So, and it's also, now we can say with proud, it's part of 100 biggest discovery which changed the world, which was recently published. And what we should do, and what we try to do, we prepare now a new project, beside of all the scientific, which I can speak very long, which type of museum should be there. And this is a project, I hope we will, finish project of it, but can construct it, but where you are telling story, earlier stages of territory, or we call it Europe. It's a first stage of territory of Caucasus, but simultaneously you are telling 2 stories, one medieval story and one prehistory. So it's a, like also dialogue between Christianity in this case and human evolution. So my point is that this discovery has different facets which can be used in both directions. Develop science, develop, of course, public education and professional education like international PhDs and so on. So this is, I think, very good case how from one bone you can move towards many different directions. So when we are talking big stages in human evolution, human history, it's origin of agriculture, right? And in agriculture, origin of agriculture is connected with conquering new territories, developing agriculture, domestication, animals, and plants, and one important story is story of wine. And you know, first grapes, it's some joke how the first humans can be used grapes, but to be serious, the question is to study residues inside of very early pottery, which is, we call it biomolecular archaeology. And in this case, you are putting big questions like, you are part of Fertile Crescent and Caucasus is continuity of it, you see. And putting this, you have the excavations, which is also in Georgia and Western, not far away, in fact, of this Tbilisi site. You see the excavations, and here was found traces of very early traces of residue, which can be said this is for wine. It's so also it was added some paleobotanical information, you see palynology and so on. So to make this shortly, finally, like in the Tbilisi case, we got international scientific recognition. It was National Academy proceedings of American National Academy. So we got a chance to have another big story, very popular story, because wine for marketing, you know, how important is it? And with big international recognition. But how to tell this story? And now, when I mentioned we are working on regional museums, this is one of the cases. It's a Bulmish Museum, in fact, which is between these Bulmish is between these two sites, the Tbilisi and the Shulaveri, where you have earliest wine story. So, and this is a museum exactly where you can tell different stories of region. This is a center of cluster, of regional cluster, and we're here presenting biocultural diversity, but also, as I told you, but correlating. So you have the story first humans, you have a story of early wine, story of early metallurgy, very old gold mining, right? And putting it to continue up to the modern time. So let's, excuse me, it's too early. So what I wanted to say that in every big stages in human history, like metal, right, first innovation, we are using it to make it understandable. So scientific story, but make it understandable for public and to translate way. And this museum has facilities now of different parts, if you like. You have auditoriums, research, and so on. So, but this is another. So if we will travel in this, history, we spoke about hunter-gatherers, we spoke about agriculture, we speak about metal, and we are coming to the classical period. And now another big story in our history, maybe most known, is story of Golden Fleece and Jason Argonauts. Everybody knows it, but nobody, I don't think everybody knows that it happens in Georgia, in Caucasus. So the storyline is how archaeology can prove it, what is Golden Fleece story. So one is, of course, still scientific history. We had also different international exhibitions to telling it, but also to use a site like the first case, Tbilisi, to build specific story on a site. And this is Vani Museum where now our cooperation will be more deeply. But the approach is what we try to have, this network approach, how the system can co-working with each other, how Bulmish Museum and Vani Museum can help each other, make it stronger, how research issues can be identified, how international field schools can work together, and how it could be also integrated in big scientific questions. If we will speak about cluster of research cluster, it goes to Black Sea and goes to Mediterranean. So to came back these stories, what we try to have, you see this storyline which was presented from classical period with combination your relationship with Greek world, telling this your own narrative, but how it was connected either with Greek story with West or East with here, for example, with ecumenic history. And this museum tells this history of classical period of Georgia through different ways. And I'm happy to say that we're cooperating with Italy. Like last year, we had exhibition Pompeii in Vani, right? Presenting story of in this regional museum. But to go ahead to speak beside these beautiful pictures of this museum, this is also storytelling and narrative of our history. One hand, it's important, we are talking about Greek colonization, we are talking about identity of Colchis and interaction with the classical world, but simultaneously, this is important for Georgian history, showing that this is background to our identity, main identity, Christian identity, that it's not just one missionary came and just brought it, but it was build it on your own background. So, and to tell the story in different places, but also where to highlight. And this is our another museum, Mestia Museum, which is in high mountains, how it looked before and now it's a completely new one, where they were telling now medieval history. And still, as I told you, are highlighting important issues, which is beyond of your own history. Number one, of course, you are telling your history to a local public, but also explaining how it correlates. For example, in this case, you need to find correlation with Byzantine. And I think this is very good case. And this museum was also like Bulmish Museum, nominated Best European Museum Award, tells very special story of Byzantine period and how here you had island or refugee of Byzantine culture. And this medieval story we're telling also in other museums. And of course, we are developing it, telling this story. You see these objects, we are correlating. So what I wanted to say that this is a chance how you are getting towards your own history through different periods, but still correlating and connected with global events. And plus, of course, you are transforming it in different way. One is, of course, classical. Another, what we discussed today, it's how technology can be part of it. But main component always could be interaction. And I think these platforms, which are, you can see it's not just beautiful picture, it shows very clearly how in regions you can make interaction with locals, with local land, develop this local young generation. Because you have in Tbilisi good exhibition lines, but more important to have lines in regional museums. So what I tried to speak and what I wanted to present was that Georgia is not just capital. Georgia has in different places something to tell to locals, but also to tell the world. And now this should be very strong network where on this horizontal relationship, you are finding values. Of course, you are always universal values, and how to identify your approach towards heritage, both natural and cultural. And then, of course, you are searching for new ideas. You are continuing putting questions. And then you're trying to find new ways of storytelling and interaction. And I think today, in the world, when we can see really without any doubt new paradigms, new changes, you see, Ukraine completely is changing, not just our region, believe me, it's a big change. So maybe, not maybe, I'm sure the heritage is getting another importance, how it should be antidotes. Heritage and presentation way is for values and to avoid what we do have today in this region and around us. So my presentation was very brief, but this is about opportunities. I think what our work should be, how we are using opportunities of scientific new discoveries, particularly in digital, but how we can combine with it with existing classical values and heritage. And I wish, and I'm sure this seminar will be one small step towards it, that we all will share one approach towards it, that heritage, history, archaeology, whatever we will call, it's a very strong tool for today and for future. And these words, past, present, future, connect, should not be by words, you see. And I wish that this today's seminar will be start of real strong dialogue. And we scientists from our side will not stay as a pontificating, but we will be also part of strong connection with community and particularly with young generation, digital generation, let's say. Thank you.